Welcome back. In this particular tutorial, we are going to see how to handle deletes in the HBase table. Okay, so let's get quickly into the HBase shell and let me list down the records that we have already created into the customer table. So scan customer, and let's see how we can delete any of the record or column in this particular customer with id is equal to 1. Let's see how we can delete this email address. Okay, so for that we have delete command, then name of the customer table, or then id, and then we can give which column we wanted to delete. Let's say we wanted to delete the email. Okay, so this is how it will delete the record. Let's confirm it by scanning this particular table one more time. So as you can see here, the difference, right? Before we executed this particular delete operation, it has displayed this email address here, rahulroy@gmail.com. But here in this particular scan, we don't have email address anymore because we have deleted that. So this is the simple syntax for the record deletion in from the HBase table. Is you start with delete, then name of the table into the single quote, the ID for which you wanted to delete this, and then the field for which you wanted to do the delete operation. Okay, so on the same lines, this is for a one single particular column. Okay, let's say if we wanted to delete entire entire id, all the values corresponding to this particular id, then how we can handle that? So for that we have delete all, something called as delete all, name of the table, customer, and row id that you have to give. So this will delete entire all the entries for row id is equal to 1 from the customer table. Okay, so the delete all operation will delete entire record itself. So let's try to scan that. So ideally we should not, this is what we were expecting, that it should not return anything since we have deleted all the records. Okay, so this is how we can delete one particular record if you wanted to delete one particular record as in one particular column entry. And if you wanted to delete all the traces of that particular row id, then you can go ahead with the delete all. Now in addition to this particular record level deletion, right, let's understand how we can delete the table from the HBase. Okay, so there is a drop command that you can use to delete a table from the customer data from HBase. Okay, so let's try to run this drop command. Okay, so drop name of the table. This is what the simple syntax of deleting or dropping a table from HBase. But see, it has given one error saying that table customer is enabled. Okay, so here is one of the concept that I'll tell you in HBase. This is pretty much very specific to the HBase tables, that in HBase there is a feature to enable or disable a table. Okay, now see, when we say that I want to delete a table, that means that table is no longer needed and I don't want to use that particular table. So there are two ways to handle delete table operation in the HBase. One, you just disable that particular table. So how this particular thing gets handled in HBase internally is, it will just kind of disable that particular table, or you can understand it as if it is a soft delete. So all the metadata information related to that particular table and everything will always be there within the HBase, but that table won't be accessible anymore to the user. Okay, and that's what we expect, right? Whenever we say I wanted to delete a table, that I don't want to access that table. Okay, So there are two ways using which we can handle this in HBase. One is you just do disablement of that particular table. That means it's kind of a soft delete. The records and the table metadata will always be present in the HBase, but that is not accessible at all. Else you just delete it the way we usually delete a table in any of the RDBMS. That okay, you vanish all the information, all the metadata, all the space taken by that particular table in a memory, everything you just delete it. Okay, so let's first understand that how to disable a table. So to disable table, what we need to do is disable and then name of the table. So it says, now let's say if we scan this particular table, then it will say this particular table is not present. Okay, so if you see, there's a long error message. See, I scanned this particular customer table. So the first thing that it has told us that customer is disabled, right? So there is one more way using which you can see the status of this particular table. We can ask, is disabled customer? So it says true. That means the customer table is disabled currently. Okay, so let's say how to enable that particular table. Okay, so to disable we have wrote the disable command. To enable we will write enable command and name of the table, enable customer. So the customer table is enabled. Now let's say if I query that is disabled customer, then I should see the return as false. Okay, so as you can see, since we have enabled this particular customer table here, it has returned us the value for the is disabled customer as false because we have recently enabled that. Now one more thing that I would like to show you here is, let's say you don't want to disable a table, you wanted to delete that particular table permanently, right? But if for that, if you fire this particular drop command, right, and if the status of the table is enabled, right, if you see this table customer is enabled, disable it first. So the basic requirement or mandatory thing to drop a table in HBase is you have to disable that table first, and then only you can drop that table. Okay, so let's go ahead and disable the table first, disable the customer table first. Okay, and once it is disabled successfully, now you can go ahead and delete this particular table. So first you disable this particular table and then go ahead and drop the customer table so that it will drop this customer table from the HBase permanently successfully. Now let's say if you just do the list, list is command that we use to list down all the tables that are present in HBase, then it should not return us with the customer value. Okay, so this is how the drop or delete table in the HBase works. Okay, now let's understand there is one more operation of truncate that we usually see in all the RDBMS. So how does the truncate works? What does truncate do is it drops the table and recreate that particular definition on the same lines. Okay, so let's see, let's execute that truncate operation on the table which is already available. So we have this cust table. Let me show you some of the records from this cust table. Okay, so there are no records here. Probably I must have deleted the records within this particular table. So let's try to insert some very simple record. I have some sample entries, so let me just insert couple of records here. It's the same record, so nothing different, only the table name and column family name is different. And email. This is the same record. Okay, scan cust. Okay, so these are the four records. So if I truncate it, right, let me just run truncate cust. Let me, before that, let me show you the describe. Okay, so it will display all the column families, description, that how many column families are there, and then some of the more information like what is the version, replication scope, and whatnot. So basically this is the same command that we usually do to describe a table, and it will display some of the more information like whether this particular table is enabled or what is the status of this particular table basically. Okay, now let's say I truncate this cust table. So you just remember this, that when I ran a scan for the cust table, it has given me some record, that it has one row ID with the four values. Okay, so let me now truncate this. Okay, so see, understand, like see this particular input, that truncating cust table, that it has disabled it, because see how does the truncate operation work, that it is going to drop your table and recreate a definition for that particular table. It will just create a schema the way it was present earlier, right? So, and the thumb rule of HBase is, if you wanted to drop a table, you have to disable it first. So obeying that, truncate has executed the disabling the table first, then it must have dropped it and then recreated it. And dropping and recreating of a table is known as truncating. Okay, so this is how the truncate operation works. So if I again do a scan on cust, then it should not be like the cust table does not exist. This table is present but without any record into it. Earlier there were records into this particular table, but after truncation, table do exist but there are no records. Okay, so in this particular tutorial we have covered multiple things, like how we can delete one single record, how we can delete all the records from a particular table, right? Then how we can drop a table, how we can check whether the table is disabled or whether the table is enabled. If we wanted to have a soft delete, then how we can do that. If we wanted to permanently delete a table, how we can handle that. And if we wanted to delete all the records and recreate the definition, that means truncate, this was the last thing that we have seen in this particular tutorial. I hope you find this particular tutorial useful and you able to understand all the concepts. Okay, thanks for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thank you.